The answer to your question is no.
Okay.
Yeah.
I call the meeting to order. I will begin by acknowledging that we are Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. The panel today, on my left is Carrie Linkletter, on my far left is Jeff Pesch. I'm Robert Buss. The assessor today is Jonathan Spacek, and our recording secretary is Belen Robo. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close with after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be a part of the public record.
Please state your full name.
Jonathan Spacek.
And you swear the evidence you represent is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
That's right.
Thank you.
Bradford Scott Borgstrom?
You swear the evidence you represent is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I see we have office properties
Yes.
on the docket today. We will begin with item number 3, 975 Henderson Highway. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if I may start with a quick note to the panel and appellant. The workups today were done by a different assessor. I'm here because he's unavailable today. So I fact checked the best I could with the time I had and went over it. But just so everybody's aware, I didn't put these documents together, but I will present them the best that I can. So,
Very good.
all right.
Thank you.
I'll start with 975 Henderson Highway. The roll number is 0203-0237-100. This is between McLeod and Layton on Henderson. It's on the east side of Henderson. There are no pictures included in these packets, it seems, but the appellant will have pictures in his, so we keep that in mind as I'm explaining the property. This is a split. It's 2 buildings on the property. There's the first, you can see on the middle top of my page for under roll year 2020, the first one is at $1,650,000. That is the McDonald's retail restaurant. And then we have the second portion, which is $9,746,000. That is the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority building. That was built to suit in 2003. And the McDonald's was rebuilt in 2016 after a fire. Combined total for the 2020 value is $11,396,000. The total leasable area across both is 44,259. You can see on page 2, they've always complied with our request for information, and Page 3, we have a rent comparables for the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority. So what was put together here was all the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority leases across the city, just showing what they are, sizes, when they started, ages of the actual building. And you can see the weighted average across all Winnipeg Regional Health Authority buildings, $18.96. Page 4, some comparables were put together for the restaurant for the McDonald's. You can see a range of rents on page 4. They range from as low as $18.75 at a McDonald's down Henderson up to, or the actual McDonald's that we're looking at today, the leases used. And then we bring in all the way up to a small Dairy Queen with $71 a square foot. But the overall range, the overall average of these restaurants is $28.66. Next, we'll move on to the actual income streams of the property. These are all model generated. We have a restaurant on page, we have the restaurant income stream on page 5, 5,259 square feet at $24.50. We have our standard restaurant parameters going down, overall cap rate of 7.35. And that works out to that total of $1,650,000 we saw on the first page for the restaurant. Page 6, we have the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority portion. With 39,000 square feet at our model-driven rate of $18.09. We have standard OFS parameters for these. So that's a rate of 5.5% vacancy, 2% expenses, $7 shortfall, 6.55% overall capitalization rate, and that's to get that total $9,746,000. Again, on page 7, you can see both income streams or both buildings are put together. You can see the total workup of them both. It works out to a blended capitalization rate of 6.67%. You can see capitalization rate page we've included in all our briefs on page 8. This just shows the different ranges of the different types of buildings. I'm sure we went over it before, but for example, you can see suburban B OFS, which is what I would consider closest to the actual subject Winnipeg Regional Health Authority building. You can see our low to high is 5.5 to 9.05% this cycle. If you take out the high and low, the 20th and 80th percentile outliers, you get a more consolidated range of 6.2 to 7.3%. And our actual cap rate on the WRHA building is 70.3, or on the OFS is 6.55%, so it's in the range. And we've also compared it to some of the other third-party cap rate analysis as well. Page 9, okay, we do have pictures on page 10, in a different spot than I put them, so I'll keep that in mind going forward. But on page 10, you can actually see the outline of the property. You can see the two buildings I was talking about in the second picture and the third picture. And you can see the actual income, the actual mailer sent in by the owner, shows the total leasable area across both properties on page 11. Page 12 shows the expenses, and page 13 shows the tenant verification. On page 14 and 15 is the income expense mailer, some points have been highlighted. You can see there's two reported commercial net leases in place. The first one, Winnipeg Regional Health Authority, is $15.25, and that was signed in 2013 and goes till 2018 for that step up. And McDonald's has a lease in place for $18.75 for 4,000 square feet. We have it as a little high in that space. But I just wanted to point out, so if you compare it to our OFS on page 6, we're at our model driven rate is $18.09. The actual in place is $15.25. The income stream, the market, or I should say the model generated on page 5 for the restaurant is $20.50, and the actual in place it looks like it's $18.75. And then on page 15, the overall rent is highlighted at $15.37 a square foot, and the 94 cents a square foot highlighted for the parking as well, it looks like. And that is everything in this packet. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay, thank you. We'll see if Mr. Boardroom has any questions.
I do. So as I start off in every hearing, I will have a number of questions for the assessor that will have equal applicability to each of the properties we'll be discussing here this morning, and I'm wondering if we might carry those questions asked and answered through the balance of the document.
Yes, we can do that.
So, are you at all all familiar with this property?
Familiar with it, what I just went over?
Okay, so you don't, you're not in that end of town, you haven't attended this site?
I mean, I've been to this building,
Okay.
I live in this end of town, but
Okay, so you'll be aware that at the east end of the site, not on the subject roll, but on a different roll number adjacent and abutting, is the Sobeys store.
absolutely, and the small strip mall, yes.
And not just the strip mall, but a liquor store, right?
A liquor store within the strip mall, yes.
Yeah, as well as part of it. So as you're looking at the configuration of the site on your page 10, would it be fair to say that at the top picture, that the parking on this site is partially utilized for the Sobeys?
All the parking, so part of it, yes, you can see
Yes.
on the left,
Yes. Yep.
or the bottom left, you just see that row there, there's 2 rows of parking,
Mhm.
and actually, yeah, so the one side is for WRHA, and then the one side is people park for Sobeys,
Right.
from my understanding.
But the Sobeys isn't on this roll number.
No,
Okay,
absolutely not.
and that's fair enough. And so similarly, the access and certainly the egress from this site also crosses the subject property in front of the McDonald's onto Anderson Highway.
Yes,
And
sure.
and no consideration has been, the model can't adjust for that, right?
It's not adjusting anything for
Okay,
for that, no.
fair enough. Now, I want to turn your attention to your page 14. And this is a copy of the rent roll as of December 31st of 2017, right?
Yes,
And this is what was received in response to the income and expense question there?
Yes.
Yes. And if you look at the top item under Winnipeg Regional E, that would be the lease for the built-to-suit office building occupied by the WRHA, right?
yes.
Now, you see there where it says 15 and it's highlighted. I'm assuming that somebody in the department highlighted it, because these are not typically highlighted.
No, they've been highlighted by the assessor.
So that's $15.25 a square foot, right?
Yes.
Is that the rent that would have been entered for the multiple regression analysis?
Yes, if you look at page, like the same as we used to, it's one of our comparables being used, we considered a net rent of 15.5.
So let's take you now back to page 12. And I want you to look at the bottom, in the top square, the bottom 3 lines above total operating expenses. Do you see where it says, I mean, they're numbered on the left-hand column, 6016, 6020, and 6034. Do you see that?
Yes, I see it.
And you see there that there's an indication that they are related to the WRHA lease?
Yes, absolutely.
And
It's shown.
so below that, or noted beside them, you see that they are non-recoverable?
Yes, absolutely, they're paying for part of the mechanical. it's like
And
maintenance.
so does that, or would that lead you to conclude that this is not a net lease?
Yeah, it looks like the owner is paying for some of the, not a pure net lease, the owner is
Okay.
paying for some of the, some sort of, they have a deal in place to pay for some of the, obviously,
That's
mechanical
part
things.
that's part of the lease.
Absolutely, that's what it
Now-
seems like.
Now, if we take a look at the total amount of the non-recoverable, and that it was actually noted by the person that returned the document to the city, that's a little over $37,000, right?
Absolutely.
That's a little over $1 a square foot.
Sure, yes.
Yeah. And so really, when we're talking in terms of a true net rent, we're closer to $14.25 a square foot, right?
It could be argued, sure.
Okay. Now, if I understand, let me just back up a minute. So all of the values being defended here are being defended on a model basis, correct?
Absolutely.
Model rents,
Yes,
model vacancy,
Yes.
cap rates.
for sure.
And the model cap rates are generated from hypothetical rents, right? And if I understand this correctly, it's the suggestion that we should disregard the rent in place. Why?
What do you mean?
Well, there's an actual lease in place,
Yes,
which is lower than the model rent, right?
yes.
And so why wouldn't we, on a site-specific basis, utilize the actual rent in place?
I mean, on site specific, you could use an actual rent anytime.
You're not suggesting that it's not a market rent?
No,
Okay. And in fact, a number of comparables you showed here are in fact contract rents, right?
absolutely, yeah.
Do you know, and some of these go back quite a ways, do you know which or if any of these were built to suit?
Offhand, I know 280 Booth was built to suit. You know, some of the more recent ones, but other than that, I can't tell you. I don't know
Okay.
for sure each one. Like, again, I didn't put these together.
And in fact, that's the one that kind of jumps out at you at 1892. That's I'm gonna have this another way. Typically, when you're talking in terms of lease rates, you're gonna come up with some kind of round number. $15, $15.25 a square foot. It's an odd number that, is that not something that sort of jiggles something that would?
I agree, it's an odd number, 1892, sure.
And if you had prepared this brief, you'd probably investigate that a little further.
As much as I could, for
Okay,
sure.
fair enough. Now, in terms of the McDonald's restaurant, there are two separate freestanding buildings on the
Yes,
site.
absolutely.
And in fact, this restaurant actually burned down a few years ago, right?
Yes, I said that.
Yeah, and I remember that clearly because my son got a ticket for driving across the fire hoses, so. But the lease rate didn't change, so certainly in terms of gas stations or river co-op stations as one example, the city has come forth and suggested that the land leases be used as the rental rates, or the imputed rental rates, right?
Using them as comparables, yes.
Or imputing the rental rates,
Yes, that's how they're imputed.
but it's not done in this case.
The land leases for restaurants, no, I believe there's, I'm not in retail, but I'm assuming there's enough restaurant net rents to get a good idea of what rent it is. Gas stations, there's no net rents, so we use land leases, because that's what the rents are.
So of the rental rates you show for restaurants on page 4, the Dairy Queen is situated actually adjacent to the Red River Co-op at McLeod and Henderson.
Yes.
And that's part of that Shinnecoe development.
Yeah, I'm not
So
sure if it's the
that-
Shinnecoe, but I know the strip mall, the co-op, and the Dairy Queen.
Sure. And so that would necessarily be a pad lease then, right?
It could be, yeah, I'm not
Don't know.
sure.
Okay. So you don't know which, if any of these are pad leases?
Yeah, I'm not sure which ones are just pure net or which ones, if there are land leases being used, I'm not sure.
And we've talked, and I use the term ad nauseum, about the non-recoverable expense allowance, and the department continues to apply the 2%.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, those are my questions, thank you.
Thank you. Let's see if there's any questions. Ms. Linkletter?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Pesh?
Questions have been asked and answered, thank you.
Okay.
That's a good thing.
On the picture on page 10, say, the top picture, is that the corner of the Sobeys at the bottom of the page?
Yes,
that we're
that's
seeing
the
there?
side of the Sobeys, yes.
Okay. And the owner is using a different, on your page 11, he's using 43,575 square feet as a leasable area,
Yeah,
and you're using slightly more,
Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure why. I know that from when I was just again looking it over, the lease in place for the McDonald's is 4,000 square feet, and we have 5,000. We have 5,259, and again, I'm not. If I would put this together and look at maybe the new, since that McDonald's changed, I can only guess why it's slightly different. But that McDonald's was rebuilt, maybe it was rebuilt at a different square footage. I don't know exactly where that difference comes from.
The fire ruined it completely, and they
Yes,
rebuilt
they
it,
rebuilt
right?
it. Yes.
Not just renovated.
No, it was like it was bad enough fire where they demoed and rebuilt.
It was great.
Yeah.
Okay. And the rent on page 14, the rent roll, I kind of didn't keep up with you when you went through there.
No problem.
There's a lease in place
Yes.
at 1525
Yes.
from 13 to 18.
Yes. And the full lease goes from 03 till 23. So there's another step up from 18 to probably 20.
I see, okay, and then there's some camp charges, some taxes.
Yeah,
et
camp
cetera.
tax, insurance recovered, and then they do parking as well there. You'll see at there's in that picture on page 10, behind the building, like to the right side there, that kind of corner all around the building is WRJ parking.
Okay, so there's a certain part of it that's a
Yeah, like employees pay for parking.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you. Mr. Borgstrom, if you would like to
Thank you.
give your evidence?
Yeah, the first thing I'm going to, and I apologize to Mr. Spacek, the assessment is split here, so the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority building is school tax exempt. That was granted last cycle, and that's shown on the assessor's brief on the first page.
Yes.
And the taxable component deals with the McDonald's restaurant only, okay?
Mhm.
So.
Well,
as-
the institutional property is still liable for the municipal tax.
Yes, it's school tax exempt.
Yes.
Yes, and we so indicate on our page 2.
Okay.
So we've already gone over what the property is, where it's located, how the lands are utilized by adjoining properties. So I'm going to take a look at our page 8. Before we get there, let's go to our page 5. And so when I am doing my analysis and preparing our briefs, I put myself in the place of the purchaser or vendor as of the reference date and what would have been known as of that date. I don't typically project out too far, but certainly within a month or two, it would be known. And in this particular case, in terms of the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority, there was a step up coming, effective May 1st, 2018. That's 1 month after the reference date. It's a long-term lease. And so I have, in fact, utilized in our analysis, and I'll get to it in a minute, I have, in fact, utilized that stepped rent. So starting with the OFS component of the income stream on page 8, we show the details there at the top of the page. Now, the city has applied $18.09 a square foot. The lease in place stepped is $15.75 per square foot. I have not, for the purposes of this hearing, adjusted that roughly $1 per square foot for the non-recoverable expenses. And so we have applied $15.75, and so this is a freely negotiated arm's length lease. The tenant and the landlord or owner acting each in their own best interest, knowledgeably, prudently. And so that is in fact just the definition of market rent. So we have applied that rate within our analysis, so our gross potential income that we're applying will be $614,250. There is no disagreement with respect to vacancy or shortfall. We have filed separately our non-recoverable expenses study. I am quite certain that you've all heard it before. I don't intend to go over it, to even accept any questions you might have arising from that. With respect to the capitalization rate, we have also filed a separate report, the 2020-21 capitalization rate study of office properties. Based on that, we think that 6.75 is the right number. I am going to take you to the rear of our submission on page, I believe it's 21. And in that box, the second line from the top is the parking revenue. Now, it turns out in this property, Winnipeg Regional Health Authority pays for some parking related to their building. So we took a look at the gross amount of the rent, $40,800. There is obviously not a recovery of things like snow clearing and so forth from that, and so we apply a 40% expense ratio to come up with a net parking income of $24,480. We have added this amount in our analysis, and you'll see that as we come to it in the end. The restaurant rent, the city's applied $24.50 a square foot. It was leased at $75,000 per annum. The building area is now 5,259 square feet. That's $14.26 a square foot. The rent didn't change when the insurance rebuilt the building. So we're suggesting that that as a contract rent should be applied. 3% vacancy, which is the same as the city's model, $7.50 shortfall, again, $7 on the non-recoverable, and we do not disagree with the 7.35% capitalization rate assigned by the city. And so the mathematics we show on page 11. You'll come down, so you'll see the square footage, you'll see the potential net market income, the vacancy rates we've applied. You'll also see a line towards the bottom, other income. That's where we've inserted the $24,480 of parking income. And so based on all of that, we're looking for a reduction to $9,042,000. And I show the suggested allocations on our page 12. So we're suggesting, based on all of that, a reduction to the school tax exempt portion, $8,138,000, and the taxable portion to $904,000. And I believe that is the information I wanted to convey to you, so I'm open for questions.
Very good, thank you. We'll see if the assessor has
I
any
have
questions.
no questions, Mr. Chair.
Let's see if the panel has any questions. Mr. Pesh?
I have no questions.
Ms. Linkletter?
I have no questions, thank you.
I have a question on the restaurant lease. 1426, you're saying, is the in-place rent $75,000 per annum?
That's the mathematical calculation of the rent paid divided by the building area.
Okay. And have you supplied any comparable rents for that?
I have not, and I had expected at some point this morning to be challenged on market rent, and I have brought along the definitions from the Dictionary of Real Estate for your reference. This is a publication of the Appraisal Institute.
Okay.
And so I paraphrased it, but let me just read it to you. This is from the Dictionary of Real Estate, 4th edition. As I said, it's a publication of the Appraisal Institute. Market rent is the most probable rent that a property should bring in a competitive and open market, reflecting all conditions and restrictions of the specified lease agreement, including term, rental adjustment and revaluation, step-ups, permitted uses, use restrictions, and expense obligations. And we also know here that these lands provide access and egress and some parking for the adjacent property. So that's all part of what's going on with this lease. The lessee and the lessor each acting prudently and knowledgeably and assuming consummation of a lease contract as of a specified date and the passing of the leasehold from the lessor to the lessee under conditions whereby, and there are 5 points. The lessee and lessor are typically motivated, and this very closely mirrors the definition of market value. are each typically motivated, both parties are well informed or well advised and acting in what they consider their best interests. Third, a reasonable time is allowed for exposure in the open market. Four, the payment is made in terms of cash in whatever the currency is, and is expressed as an amount per time period consistent with the payment schedule of the lease contract. And five, the rental amount represents the normal consideration for the property leased, unaffected by special fees or concessions granted by anyone associated with the transaction. These leases, and I'll suggest to you the other ones this morning that we're going to come across, all meet that test of market rent. It's a long answer, sorry.
The last point,
Yeah.
could you read that last point again?
Yep. The rental amount represents the normal consideration for the property leased unaffected by special fees or concessions granted by anyone associated with the transaction. So,
Okay. The word to me there is unaffected, so.
yeah, but you also need to look at the following words.
Mhm. But generally, do you know, would you want to bring in some comparables to see if that value of the 1426 is a fair value, unaffected by different things?
There is nothing in the lease, and I can tell you that I have done this property more than twice, by my recollection, over a number of assessment cycles. I can tell you that the lease was freely negotiated, that there is no relationship between the landlord and tenant, and we have not. Special fees or concessions would be, I'm going to give you $500,000, and I've come across instances like that where a large sum of money gets transferred to the tenant. 180 Main comes to mind. They received a large amount of money. No improvements were done to the building. That's a unique circumstance, and in that circumstance, the question becomes, do you use that adjusted rent, or do you actually use the full amount of the lease? In this case, this is the rent that the tenant is obligated to pay under contract. This is the rent that the landlord is entitled to receive under the lease agreement, not a penny more, and it's also binding upon any purchaser of this property for the term of the lease.
Okay. Who paid to build the original restaurant? Did McDonald's build it themselves?
I don't know.
Would it make a difference if McDonald's had built it themselves and paid for everything?
Well, that's not been the city's position, certainly with respect to the SKP and DCWs. I can give you the example of 1070 Henderson, which is up the street, basically up the street a little bit adjacent to the Dairy Queen we were just talking about. It was built in '96, they actually scraped it, pushed it back, built a brand new, larger convenience store. It doesn't affect the lease rate, and it doesn't affect the lease rate that the city is bringing into evidence in this cycle.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's all my questions. Anything you'd like to add?
No summation.
Any summation?
Thank you. No.
Okay, that will conclude 975 Henderson. We move along to 453 Golden Court.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. We're looking at roll number 030652100200. This is 453 Doverport Drive, south of Scurfield. The 2020 assessment is $10,997,000. This was built in 1998. It has a gross floor area of 63,319 and a leasable area of 62,039. You can turn to page 10. or on this one, you can turn to page 8 if you'd like to see some pictures. We have an aerial view, you can see the building and parking. And page 8 building and parking. This building is considered a one-story, no basement, and it has a mezzanine space for the, we'll call it the second floor space. That's where you get the total square footage for. If you see page 3, the assessor has put together a list of OFS rents with a weighted average of $14.73. There are a large amount of OFS rents on here on the Waverly area, Taylor, Waverly, you can look through, whichever day, but the weighted average is $14.73 across all comparables. Page 4 is the actual income workup for this property. You'll see we have the space split up into 3 spaces. The total average rent though across the building is $12.95, and without, from my understanding, there is no issue taken with the rent, but I'll leave that for the appellant. Going forward, the OFS parameters are the same. We have 5.5% vacancy, $7 shortfall, 2% expense, 6.55% cap rate, and that's where you get that total value of $10,997,000. Again, on this one, we have a cap rate of 6.55%, but page 5 just shows that same income workup because there's only one stream. Page 6, again, is our capitalization rate sheet, and if you look at suburban B office, again, the same range I talked about last time, we're at 6.55% on this property. Page 9, we have the income and expense measure, but it's fully unoccupied, so they are showing as much information as they can, but it's mostly just expenses. And page 10 and 11 is just some more, just the rest of the mailer, and that is what has been provided by the assessor. If you have any questions on this property, please let me know.
Thank you. Mr. Boardroom, do you have any questions?
I actually just have a couple of questions on this one. Now, this property is shown as being built in 1998.
That's what it shows.
And that's fine. Do you know where the cutoff is in the modeling for age groupings?
No, I don't have that memorized.
And you don't have that with you?
No.
Fair enough. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Panel members? Ms. Nicolette?
I'm assuming you didn't inspect this property.
I've never been as well, no.
Do you have in your notes when this was last inspected?
I did not look when this was last inspected, no.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
No questions.
It says that there's 3 buildings,
Yeah, that's what it has.
or number of buildings, 2.
2, yeah.
So it's the main building and then that little one on the...
That's what I'm assuming.
You've supplied some rents for us, some average rents, or some rents, I should say.
Yeah, this is a list of OFS comparables. A large majority of them in kind of Taylor, in the Waverly area.
And how come there's 3 premises?
The 3 premises are just how it was split up when it was put in. I'm not exactly sure on if, we have main floor mezz and then that 1225 is that small added building, but that would be my guess at first look.
Okay, so what did you say about the main floor mezz?
Well, I would guess that they have a main, what's it called, the plan area is 43, but so leasable main floor would be the first one.
Okay,
Sorry, the 24,000. It is split up, I'm assuming, between main floor and mezz. That's how, it can be done in these large buildings, but that's the best answer I can give.
thank you, that's all my questions.
Sure.
Take us through your information.
So Mr. Spacek is quite correct. There are lots of leases available to look at. I did take a look at a lot of them. Waverly Taylor, as you said, the Henlow, the Skirtfield area. 1295 was close enough in my mind, so we are adopting, for the purposes of this report, the city's rent at $12.95 a square foot. And so just to try and streamline this, our differences in this case are non-recoverable expense allowance at 7%, and the capitalization rate, the city has suggested 6.55 on this. We're suggesting based on our separately submitted study, 6.75%. Just for reference, I don't believe this property was appealed last cycle. And in fact, it's a Manitoba Hydro building, and in fact, I believe this is the first time through with this one, so. That's it, thank you.
Very good. And you're asking for,
$10,106,000 as shown on page 8.
okay, let's see if there's any questions.
I have no questions for you, Thomas.
Questions?
I'm actually just gonna redirect to the city for a moment.
Sure.
Did you state in your description of this building that there's no basement?
That's from the notes, from my understanding, there's no basement space.
So what would the build be if it's not a slab?
I just, maybe the Ellen knows more from the notes, I just thought the basement.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Borgstrom?
I believe it's accurate that it does not have a basement. This structure is built to, it houses operations that required significantly robust construction for this property. Those are, in my mind, an overbuild, not recognized, or wouldn't be recognized in the market. It can withstand a tornado. It's hydro. And so it does not have a basement area.
So would it be slab? I'm just finding this
I-
unusual for this
I
size of building.
believe that it's a slab. Now, whether there is a crawl space under there, I don't know, but it's got to be a slab.
Okay. So this is overbuilt, you said?
I hesitate to go into a lot of detail about it, but it is a very robust building. And actually, when you look at the pictures of the outside, it's pretty plain Jane when you think about it. And as you're driving down Waverly and you get close to McGilvery, just north of McGilvery on the east side, you'll see a couple of quite modern buildings designed by Ray Wan. That's kind of the modern sort of perspective. This was designed for functional utility. So, in my mind, it doesn't have a great deal of curb appeal, but it is office space, relatively new, built in 1998.
Okay. So would that affect its value in terms of the structure of how it's built?
No, because in my mind, the market, in my world, and perhaps Jonathan's, we would term that a super adequacy, something that the market isn't willing to pay for. Nobody
Yes.
else needs that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, that's all my questions.
Thank you. And Jeff?
Yeah, you mentioned a robust building built with functional utility. I'm wondering what you might attribute the increase in the cap rate, although it's a marginal increase from the assessment.
Based on our capitalization rate study, I don't think I brought a copy. Ellen, can I steal a copy of that?
We have copies.
Thank you. So if we take a look at our separately filed office capitalization rate study, I'm not going to go over this because I know I'll do it for it. But there is a lot of supporting documentation, but we show our conclusions on page 6 of this report. And you'll see there for OFS that there is a range. And so 6.25 would be brand new, best of the best. This is 20 years old, so it is no longer new. It's not old, but it's not new, which is why I selected 6.75%.
Thank you, I have no other questions.
Very good. And I have no questions, so any summation?
Thank you, no.
Okay, that will conclude 453 Dover Court.
Hey, look, we're not gonna be here till 5.
I don't think so. Never know though.
You never know.
And we will move along to 510 Keniston Boulevard.
So if I might just interject here, I do not have client instruction on this property, and we are simply seeking a confirmation of the assessment. I'm happy to read out the roll number and the file number if you want. but we are seeking confirmation under section 54(1) of municipal assessment.
We will have the assessor read it into the roll.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The roll number is 12074161400, 510 Kennison Boulevard, 2020 value of $8,632,000.
Thank you, and there's no questions, you're asking for confirmation.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. And, any questions from the panel members? Okay, very good. We will move along to 131 Bonche Boulevard.
All right, we're looking at roll number 0609311880. This is 131 Planche Boulevard. This is just over the Planche Bridge on Planche. It's the corner of Taché and Planche. It is a three-story office building. We have a 2020 total value of $7,634,000. This is a split between taxable and exempt portion within the building. So the taxable portion of the building is model driven at $5,005,000, and the exempt portion is the portion of the building that's occupied by the City of Winnipeg Library Services, and it works out to $2,629,000. You can see it's built in 1987, and I'm going to see if the assessor. So on page 10, you can see there's a couple pictures of the building just to get an idea where it is and how it's set up there. So we have a total gross area of 44,991 and a leasable area of 38,481. Again, we are using or the assessor has put together a list of OFS comparables that have a farther range across the city. There's 65 of them total, for a total weighted average of 1386 on that's page 3 and page 4. Page 5 is our model workup. You can see that for the taxable portion of the building, these smaller units are deriving a rent with an average of $15.38 a square foot. So this is for the office space. That is taxable, and you can see we're using our standard OFS parameters, and this building is deriving a cap rate of 6.7%. And you'll see on page 6, we also have a 14,286 square feet. So this is that library services area I was talking about before. It derives a rent due to its size at $13.73, and we're using our standard OFS parameters, and that's where you get the exempt portion of the building at $2,629,000. Page 7 shows this breakup of the two income streams, but coming to that total value. Again, same capitalization rate on page 8. Going forward, we do have a mailer by the owner of the property at page 11. Shows all of the expenses in the property. There's a 3.94% vacancy for the 2017 income year. And then page 13, the assessor has highlighted the rents in place. You can see there's a base rent, or the net rent, and then the recovery on the column beside it. But you can see that the net rents in the building range from $12.62 up to as high as $17 and $18. So you can see those rents across the building. And there is one from just looking over the reviewing this property before. This property does have two roll numbers. I did make a recommendation on this property last cycle, so I will follow through with it, that the two parking lots. There's one on, and I don't want to present from the appellant's evidence, and he will show it, but there are two parking lots you'll see as evidence that are used for this building, combined library services and for the tenants in the building for parking. So you'll see that. Pardon?
Across Taché.
One's behind it, across the back lane behind it. There's one lot, and you'll see in the appellant's evidence, and there's one across Taché, yes, along the river there. So I recommended last time one economic unit. The building takes up the full site plan. Like there's no on-site parking, so and then the parking is used for the building. So I'm okay with accepting the request to remove those two values. The only, and I'm sure this will come up across, and you can ask questions about it, but they were, from my understanding, usually when we do that, we ask that they be withdrawn, right? So the value doesn't change at another hearing later. So if you remove, say, a $300,000 lot, it goes to the municipal board, and then they're gonna say it gets lowered, right? Just so there's kind of a situation where they've already been heard, but they've been appealed to the municipal board. So it's an odd situation from just a quick look at it.
And so, I'm just gonna jump in here for half a second.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that they have been appealed, and perhaps we can ask.
The Tache one for sure has.
Okay, and if that's the case,
Yeah.
then absolutely we'll figure it out. I mean, we can ask.
For sure.
And so if it's the case that the assessed value has changed and we get the reduction here, then you will have my undertaking that those appeals will be withdrawn.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where the situation gets.
It gets weird,
Yeah, I understand. We want to make sure it doesn't
you
get.
know. I thought that they had not been, but.
And I think it's something from just a quick conversation, it's something to do with, possibly with exemption. Like, I don't know if that's the issue that's getting appealed, but again, I don't know. I just want to make sure that we
Yeah.
have an understanding that if they're taken
Yeah.
off, they're withdrawn.
Yeah.
So then we keep that value going forward.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll make sure that in the end, something is not right. Okay.
And that is my presentation.
Presentation. So we'll see if there's, did you give us the value for those lots?
No, that is, again, I just looked over before and the assessor had not done that recommendation, but
They're within our information.
yeah, they're, the actual parking lot values and what they were put at the board is in the appellant's evidence.
Okay. Questions, Mr. Borch?
Actually, just a couple. So, and I appreciate that you didn't prepare this. But if we look at your page 3 at the top, it's labeled there incomparables OFS.
Yes.
And if we look at page 4, there are actually 3 within the subject property, right?
Yes.
But one of them's a restaurant, right?
Sure. Yeah, there's a couple of restaurants that have sushi within. the
Yeah,
property.
so that's not office.
It's not OFS, right? It's within an OFS, but yeah, you can label that one as a restaurant.
And so we don't know from this list if there are medical offices or dental offices or restaurants or other occupancies other than a normal office.
Yeah, you can't see that. You can't see the
Okay.
tenant list on yours.
That's fair enough. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Panel members, Mr. Pesh?
So this is model driven.
Yes.
And I note the property income and expense question there. There's an NOI of 552.
Let me just double
796.
check, make sure I'm reading it right.
So I want to make sure I'm reading it right.
So page 11, they have a reported NOI. Yeah, they bring income of 535 in there. Well, yeah, they're reporting an NOI of 552,796 on page on line 218. Yes.
And your total NOI is? Sorry, what NOI are you?
We are using an NOI of 511,472.
Okay, is it just a function of time that you would use the actual NOI?
Well, again, so we don't do site specific, like I don't just take this NOI, apply it in all cases, like often there can be, the net rents are a good indicator what they're getting. It looks like this year on their mailer, the way, their total income at the bottom left is 985, 594, when they take off their expenses, they're having an NOI 552. I would look at if ours is reasonable, we're obviously under by a bit, by 40,000, but yeah, if I would make action on that, like to ask for an increase or something, I can't give you an answer.
Sure. All right, and then in terms of your capitalization rate, it's well supported? Drawn out of the typical capitalization rates?
Like, if you're, the only evidence I've provided for the
Yes,
capitalization is our
I see
sheet,
that.
yeah, it's within our range that we've supplied for sure.
Okay. All right, I have no other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Greta?
Yes, I just have a question again about the cap rate. So on page 8 of your brief,
Page 8, yes.
so you've got cap rates of 6.7. So, is that gonna be office downtown B? or is that-
Suburban A or B, is what I would put it as. It's a 1 to 3 story. It's it's on Provencher, but it's outside of our downtown core. You could, the size of buildings for OFB are often much larger than our subject property. But there are smaller OFBs that are built, but this is built in, well, it's similar build time to OFBs, but yeah, I mean, it could be argued, you could argue how you want to classify this building, OFS, OFB.
Even though this building's 33 years old?
Yeah, most OFBs were built in like the 70s.
Okay. Thank you.
The situation with the parking lot,
Yes.
can they just call you one day in the office and you guys work everything out? You just-
Yeah, I'm not sure how, and I've had a few of these, where it is considered one economic unit, but when they're on a separate roll number, there's nothing to stop them from just selling. Like, it's one of those things that almost come up every cycle for certain buildings, when they have a separate, and I get what you're saying, it would be nice if it was automatically taken off, if that's what you mean, so set up where it was
Yeah,
automatically
instead of
dealt
us
with.
going through the,
Yeah.
taking it off, thinking that
Yeah.
we're doing the right thing, or
Yeah.
it will be withdrawn or something.
Yeah, I agree.
You can't have it worked out. in
I am
the
not
background.
sure if there are any cases where it's automatically done,
Or if they request it, you guys can.
yeah,
Look
because
at
I
it
know when
and
it's
say-
across a back lane or across a street, it's not the same roll number, like, we don't put it on the same roll number, like, maybe there's a very special case, but like, when there's that split, we don't usually, from my understanding and my knowledge, we have not put them as one.
But if the appellant was to call you up, would you take the value off if they call you and say, listen, my parking lot's across the.
Well, like if I was, like last cycle I did this one and made a recommendation, and so it does happen, I'm not against it in this situation, it didn't due to the, when it was put through and who looked at it, but
Okay,
I'm not sure if there's a simpler way, if that's the question.
that's what I'm getting at, yeah. That's all my questions.
I do have a couple of follow-ups arising questions from the panel, and I just want to take you to your page 11. Now, there was mention made of the net operating income, and I just want to take you through this for a moment very quickly. You can't simply look at the net operating income as an indicator, because you need to do at the very least some analysis of the line items that comprise that net operating income, right?
Absolutely, I was just
Yeah.
saying that's what they reported.
Yeah, and so if we take a look at the recoveries on your page 11, and I'm turn the page landscape, so it's under the annual income received. I've already done the mathematics, and you can take my word for it or not, I'm happy to have you do the calculations, but if we look at your total recoveries, they add up to $445,270.
Sure.
Yeah, and if we take a look under the annual expenses for the property, you'll see there that they have an expense line item, vacancy cost allowance. That's not an operating expense for the property, right?
From my understanding, no?
Yeah, so if we deducted only that from the expenses, we would have revised expenses of $416,324.
Sure.
Which is about $30,000 less than.
Absolutely.
A net of $30,000 less, so we would need to adjust the net operating income.
Absolutely, I would look at 3 years, I would see if some of the recoveries, or maybe they're recovering more from this year because there was a shortage last year and they're over-recovering, if there's lots of reasons why they
Yeah,
get different.
and in fact, very often there's an overlap in recoveries from one year to the next.
Well, they
That's
have to,
why we
yeah,
don't
that's
look
why
at
you look at
single
3
year,
years,
right?
exactly, that's why I haven't made an adjustment, or the assessor who looked at this did not make an adjustment, we're looking at model.
Thank you, those are my questions.
Thank you. Okay, if you would like to take us to.
Yeah, really quickly, I'm going to start at page 9. We do lay out all of the leases within this property. I should mention that a portion of this property is fully exempt. The city last cycle, I believe, started issuing exempt or supplementary assessment notices for any property they occupied exempting themselves, and so the exempt portion of the property here is for the library, which is located on the main floor of this building.
part of the second floor.
And part of the second, yeah, that's quite true. And so we take a look at page 9, and I show there the leases. All of these leases either started or were stepped up in the period 2016 to 2017. There's nothing in any of these leases that would lead you to conclude that they should not be applied. And in fact, when you look at the leases here, our gross potential rent versus the city, we're about $8,000 apart. So we're slightly lower than the city, but the city's model actually came very close in this case. Having said all of that, we're applying the actual leases in place on this property. Again, we took a look at the operating expenses on this property. They were $985 a square foot for 2017, $967 a square foot for 2016, and $1032 a square foot for 2015. We have, in this case, adjusted based on that, and so we're applying a stabilized shortfall rate of $975 a square foot, so a little bump from the city's standardized rate. Again, for the reasons already described, the non-recoverable expenses at 7%, and we've adjusted the city's capitalization rate from 6.7 to 6.75 based on our study. Now, I asked the assessor where the age cutoff was, and he doesn't know, but it's pretty clear that it's somewhere after 1987. So the previous properties had a lower cap rate, model cap rate applied to them. This one's 1987. So it's going to be in there somewhere. We do show on our page 11 our adjustment. We have included there a proportional amount used by the city, exemption-wise, and so we do show those amounts there. We go through the mathematics in the table at the bottom of page 11, and we're looking for a reduction to a total of $6,329,000, and we show the suggested allocations based on that on our page 12. And just to confirm, Ellen, did you get a chance to look up these rules?
What room was?
Sorry. We've got two. Sorry, I should have thrown this at you.
So that rule has already been heard.
No, and what happened with it? If the number has changed, then we're gonna revise our figures, right?
Oh, the values are the same.
The values are the
Just
same.
they've been taken to the missile board.
And, okay.
One has for sure, I know that.
Okay, so I will now give you my undertaking that,
I'll make a note.
that quantum will not be an issue going forward, assuming that they are removed from this appeal.
That one is confirmed.
Yeah.
And
then
the
there
other
was-
one?
Sorry, yeah. There you go. Thank you for looking that up.
And that one was reduced.
Okay, so what was it reduced to?
381.
And 381 is what we're showing on our information here. So what we're asking to be reduced is the reduced amount. And so quantum will not be an issue with the board. I'll need to check with, I believe it's Marcelo about what's going on with the exemption. So. And so the figures that we show on page 12 remain unchanged. We are using the confirmed amount of the one roll and the reduced amount on the second roll. Do you know that? And with that, I am open to questions.
Thank you. Let's see if the
I have
assessor
no
has-
questions, thank you.
Ms. Lickletter?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Fish?
Very minor point on the, excuse me, On the market rent, I know that there has been a vacancy for a considerable amount of time. Wondering if reasonable efforts have been made to,
Well, I can tell you, well, first of all, 1585 square feet is, yes, it's vacant space. It's not egregiously vacant. It's not excessively vacant. I can tell you that this is managed by one of the larger property management companies in the city.
so to summarize, then all reasonable efforts have been made.
And I think you can take that to the bank.
Great, thank you. And then, I'm sorry, you may have said it, I'm just trying to understand the adjustments prorated on your page 11, 648,000.
Yeah.
How do you arrive at that number?
The parking lots.
So, and that's, that value is?
Well, because we are prorating, so we've added up the two assessed values,
Yeah.
and we are allocating them on the basis.
Total of those two, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. No other questions?
Sorry, yeah, I should have gone into that in more detail.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to assume.
Thank
And
you.
those adjustments are for the two parking lots, 408, 240, and 240, 239, 760. Those are for 239,760.
And 381.
That was my
The
interpretation.
408 is changed to 381.
Yeah, and 381, if you look at our page 20, 381 is the figure that we've applied. Should add this up again before you shoot my mouth off. 267.
381.
Up to a total of 648, and that's the figure we show on page 11.
Yeah, okay.
I was quite certain that I had gone through that exercise, but it was a while ago.
Okay, that is all my questions, thank you. We'll take a short break. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order, and we will begin with item number 7 on the docket, 3025 Portage Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're looking at roll number 07-4382-62100, 3025 Portage. This is just west of Sturgeon. We have a 2020 value of $7,478,000. We have two buildings on this property and a parkade. The office and retail portion building were built in 1987, and the parkade was built in 2002. We have a gross floor area across all the buildings of 46,526, with a leasable area of 41,399. So, as you see on page 3, we have, you know what, maybe I will point you to page 14 first. You see what I'm talking about here? So we do have 3 income streams. We have on the left-hand side of page 14, we have a retail building. The center of the parcel, we do have a parkade. And on the right side of the property, we have the actual large office building. And I will go back to page 3 now. You can see we do have some comparables for office style buildings as we used in the last couple properties. You can see the total weighted average is $13.86. And on page 5, we have the actual, so we have OFS standard 1,200 square feet of that left side building that we have, and it has a rent of $21.83 a square foot. Using standard OFS parameters, we get a total value of $418,000, so that smaller OFS gets a cap rate of 5.7%, model driven. You can see on page 7, we have the larger office portion of the building on the right-hand side of the property as OFB. So we have 37,000 square feet, 698. We have an average rent of $11.95. And we have standard OFB parameters across this building, so 9% vacancy, 2% expenses, $11 shortfall, and a 6.75% cap rate. The OFB characteristics on the building drive that 6.7% cap rate, and it's the same across all OFBs. So that you get a total value, if you look on the right-hand side of page 7, $5,397,000. This will all be shown on one page later. Page 8, we have restaurant portion, 2,500 square feet of $31.55, and this is standard RST rent. Our restaurant parameters, and you go down, you get that total $1,145,000, and the income stream on page 9. We have the parkade portion. So there's a 48 stall parkade. This is a monthly net rent of $63 a square foot, model driven, and we get a 7% cap rate on all parkades. It gives the parkade a value of $518,000. So page 10 and 11, if you look at it both, is, you know, it's been a while since I had one of the four income streams, but the total is all on the left-hand side under the summary, and then you have the 4 different streams to get that $7,470,000 across all 4 portions of the property. We have capitalization rate sheet on page 12, page 13. I will point out on page 10, so you know each premise is getting a slightly different cap rate based on the classification of it, the size of it, but there's a blended rate of 6.67% across all the buildings. Again, page 14, 15 are just the pictures you can see again. Page 17 is the mailer sent in by the owner. You can see a total lease available area of 41,399, which is exactly what we're using, and they have an average space vacant of 8%. You can see 17 going forward. You can see each page is a lease abstract for a different unit. So you can see in the middle right side the base rent of these properties. So for example, on page 17 in the middle, you can see the base rent of the coffee, which is the left-hand side building of that first picture. They're making it's $24 net rent. And you can go through, you can see the different units, the Fabutan on page 18 is $23 rent. You can go forward, you can see it's, instead of being on one page nicely, they're all spread out. And that is what has been included. And that is all the evidence that has been provided. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Very good, thank you very much. Let's see if Mr. Bergstrom has questions.
I do. This is a little more involved, this property. And so there are 3, let's call them structures on this property, correct?
Sure.
There is what I'll describe as the office building, and actually when you look at it, it has different numbers of stories sort of as you go to the rear of the site, right?
A different floor plan every
And then
floor,
on
slightly changes.
On the west side of the site is a standalone building, right?
Yes.
And that used to be occupied 100% by one restaurant, right?
From my understanding.
And now it's split into 2 separate components. One's a coffee shop, if you will, and the other's a tanning salon, right?
Yes.
If I understand your information correctly, you classified the tanning salon as office space?
From the OFS, yes.
Okay. And the property also has a parking structure on it,
Yes,
right?
it has a parking structure.
Right. Now, the parking structure was built in 2002.
I believe, yes.
Do you know why the parking structure was built?
I did not talk to the builder.
Okay, so let's take a look at your page 1. And you'll see there the land to plan area of 2.17. That would be...
Sorry. The front
on
first
your-
page of mine?
Yes.
2.17.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be very, very low for restaurant and office buildings.
Yes, absolutely.
that would be why they put the arcade up there, correct?
So they have a proper amount of parking as per
Yeah.
bylaws?
Yeah,
Sure.
and so they've created extra parking with
Absolutely.
the construction of this structure now. For the most part, would you believe that that structure doesn't generate any revenue?
You know what, I did not see if any was reported, but it would not be the same as a downtown parking structure. You know, suburban parking structures are pretty rare.
Do you know, and so and I appreciate that you didn't prepare this document, but if we look at your page 11, and you show there a gross potential rent, do you know how many stalls that is?
Potential rent
On page 11
is 48 stalls,
48 stalls?
yes.
Now, this, if we take a look at the income and expense there for the property, you haven't actually included the financials, right?
I do not see it, no.
Okay. Now, some of these stalls, were you aware that some of these stalls are leased to the tenants?
I would believe you.
Okay. And so you said that the city has used, 48 stalls?
48 stalls at $63 a stall.
That's
On
60.
page 9 is a income breakdown. of
That's
parking
$63
structure.
a stall. If we look at your page 16,
My page 16? Yes.
it indicates on there that for the stalls that they do rent, they charge $35 a month.
For the outdoor stall. Number of stalls, 200.
This whole parking structure
Yes.
is unheated, it's outside.
Yes.
What it is basically a slab to
Yes,
the ground, right?
for sure.
And so $35 a month, yes?
Yes,
And
that's what
a-
it looks like.
That's a gross amount,
That's a
correct?
gross rent, yes.
And so there would be expenses associated with that that would need to be removed, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Now, I'm gonna guess that you've not had the chance to review the leases on this property.
In depth, no. I went
But
went through them.
if you've had the chance to look at previous years, are you aware that the lease rates typically escalate annually in this property?
I am unaware of annual increments.
I believe those are my questions.
Thank you. Let's see if panel has any questions. Mr. Pesh, I have no questions. Ms. Lavender?
You didn't have a chance to inspect this?
No, I have not inspected for this appeal.
Do you know, are you aware of the exact location of this property?
Like where it is on
Yeah.
Portage, I mean, I've been to it. West End Portage isn't my home. I'm not super familiar with the area.
Would you agree, I'm gonna use the word awkward location?
Sure.
Sorry, that's all my questions.
Thank you. The parking, you said you're using a stall count of 48 for
Yes.
valuation, but is there more than 48 in?
I'm unaware of the actual stall count within that parkade.
It's not in the owners.
I did not see, it's not in the owners, and then we just have 200 stalls across. I don't know if that's every spot in the parking lot. I wish I knew.
Okay. And the one building has the building on the left, the small building, has a restaurant and a tanning booth. And that's income stream number, your first income stream, where are those things?
I believe we have a restaurant at 2,500 square feet on page 8. And a OFS at 1,200 square feet on page 5. So I believe those two make up that building. But again, these are things I would have learned if I put this property together.
Yeah, it's tough, I appreciate.
I'm not sure if that front main floor is possibly considered the retail of the OFB, but again. Yeah, I agree. The appellant will probably clarify these all in his
Okay.
presentation.
Yes. That's all my questions. We'll hear all three. from now.
Thank you. And just building on questions from panel. Yeah, this property is awkward. We show you, once upon a time, it actually had an ATM on the site too, and on a previous appeal, when I inspected the property, it wasn't there anymore. So we updated the records, but I'm going to start with the overhead shot on page 4.
Okay.
Property is actually located just west, literally just west of Sturgeon and Portage Avenue. And you'll see there on page 4, the top picture, you'll see there a vacant lot. Now on that site is actually an A&W. So access and egress to the subject property is, I would agree with the characterization as awkward. The site is also undersized in terms of the square footage of office space, the restaurant use for the coffee shop, and actually the previous restaurant use in here as well. That's why they had to build the parking structure. Yeah, it's basically a slab. It's not heated, it's open up and down to the elements. So there will still be maintenance, there will still be snow clearing required and all of that. So having said all of that, I can tell you that I have worked on this property for a number of past appeals. We show the summary. So I've broken it down into 3 different components: the office, the restaurant, and the parking structure. And the office we're going to start with on page 8. These are the reported rents, and as I've gone through this, I've gone through an extensive amount of work on this recently arising from case management before the municipal board for 2014 appeal. So I had to completely refamiliarize myself with the property. So when I'm talking to you about it, I'm talking about a span of probably the last 10 years from this reference date. So the rents in here typically escalate annually. They are certainly, none of them are quote-unquote long-term. Royal LePage was formerly occupied by a different real estate company. They are in there and have been in there for quite a number of years now. They have experienced some vacancy in this property, but nothing that I think needs adjusting beyond the department's 9% allowance that they've applied on this property. And so based on all of that, we think that for this office component, and what I'm talking about here is just the easternmost structure on this site. So 37,698 square feet, 1205 a square foot. That's the rent that we're applying for this structure. No disagreement with the city's 9% vacancy allowance, $11 shortfall. You apply again $7 for the non-recoverable expenses. In this case, based on our capitalization rate study that we've already talked about, we've applied 7% instead of these 6.75 applied by the city. Secondly, I took a look at the freestanding building. This used to be, I'm now on page 10, this used to be a single restaurant occupant for the entire 3,700 square feet. They've now divided into a coffee shop and a Fabutin. So the coffee shop is still more or less a restaurant yet, but as a separate freestanding building. Now the city has applied $31.55 per square foot to the 2,500 square foot coffee shop. Actual rent in place, $24 a square foot. So the modeling in this location for this particular property is a little wonky. They've applied $21.83 to the 1,200 square foot. I'm going to call it retail space. The Fabutin is not office. The actual rent in place is a little higher than that, 23, and that's what we've applied. So overall, we've got 3,700 square feet in total for this structure, and a total rent $87,600, $23.68 a square foot. 5% vacancy for that income stream, $7 shortfall, 7 unrecoverable, and again a 7% cap rate. I believe if we check, we have submitted a retail capitalization rate study with this property. 10th, I hope to arrive. We also took a look at the parking structure, we're on page 11 now, so I took a look at the gross amounts reported on their statements annually for the last 10 years. And if you include parking and miscellaneous income, and typically miscellaneous income doesn't add up to a lot, but you'll see there that the highest of any of the years was way back in 2010. The second highest of the years is 2017. All the other years are less than that, and those are gross amounts. They do not account for the expenses associated with that that parking income. That includes the property tax component, any insurance that would be applicable to it, even the snow clearing would all be non-recoverable from those parking rates. So we have actually applied the 23,565, but we have, in this case, as I did previously with 975 Henderson, deducted a 40% expense ratio. That is a generally agreed upon expense ratio for outdoor stalls. So we're going to apply a net parking income of $14,139. That's significantly lower than the city's model has applied to this property. And again, 7%, one economic unit across the board. So we've done 7% across the board. We go through the mathematics on page 12. You'll see the OFB, the parking structure, which is PST, and the restaurant, which also includes the coffee shop and the Tabbytown. We go through the mathematics all the way down. The parking structure, the 14,139, is the net amount, so we just flow it through to the bottom. Based on all of that, we're looking for a reduction to $6,246,000. I have included the supporting documentation with respect to the parking and miscellaneous income. Certainly for 2017 and 16, I do have the other documents with me here supporting the actual figures that we've supplied there. So with that, I am open to questions.
Thank you.
I have no questions, Mr. Chair.
Questions? Panel members, Mr. Pesh, questions?
Just out of curiosity, applying the 40% expense ratio to the parking structure, what would the nature of those expenses be?
Property taxes, insurance, snow clearing, there will be necessary repair maintenance. The concrete structures for parking in our climate suffer from physical deterioration by way of spalling. So the chlorides seep into the concrete. You'll see many repairs going on in parkades and structures. And so there is necessarily non-recoverable expenses associated with those repairs. I'm not talking about a complete rehab, but periodic repairs are absolutely necessary.
Again, more curiosity, what is the typical useful life of a parkade of that nature?
Ooh, parking structure, concrete structure with proper maintenance, I would expect to last 45, 50 years. Certainly, gotta think about this for a minute. They really didn't come into vogue, well, I guess they did. Certainly the medical arts parkade would have been built around in the early 1970s. So, in that range.
Yes, so I'm assuming that you had a chance to inspect this property.
I have inspected it previously, I did not inspect it for this hearing, and to be quite frank, the last time I was in there was quite a number of years ago. As I said, at that time, there was an ATM reported by the city, but it wasn't there anymore, so that's going back a lot of years.
Okay, so when you were there, the coffee shop wasn't there?
No, it was a single restaurant.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
The name escapes me off the top of my head, it was not a chain, and they eventually,
Yes.
restaurants in the city come and go. This is a highly densely populated restaurant city, and so they come and they go frequently.
Yes. Sorry, no further questions.
Do you know how many stalls are in that parkade?
I do not.
Is it,
If I was to, sorry, if I just.
let me finish my question.
Okay.
Is it the case then that they're renting some stalls out and some stalls they keep for the public to use?
They rent out some stalls to the tenants, of the office building, and I don't know how many. But their stated rate is $35, and they report on their financial statements the total income associated with parking in this premises, and that's what we're showing in our information here. So it's very unusual, and 975 Henderson is almost the only other example I can think of where a landlord actually charges a tenant in a suburban location for parking. Really rare. That's why people, I don't want to say they're moving out of downtown, but that's one of the attractions, is that you've got available parking without having to pay for it for your employees.
But there would most likely some stalls there that are kept free for the people coming to the restaurants.
Right, and that, well, that would be
the
certainly.
doctor's offices, et cetera.
And so that would be the ground, the main site area, with the restaurant being off to the west side. The other part of that is that the parking structure is 100% necessary because of the very low land to plant area here.
Yes.
It isn't sufficient to support the office and restaurant use on the site, right? In the front, and I didn't go over the tenancy details, but the very front section of the, I'll call it the office building, is more retail in nature. You've got an optical store in there, you've got a travel agency in there, and there are other uses which in my mind would be more like made for retail in an office building. So those are gonna require a lot of parking. You also have occupants of the building that will require parking, not only for the employees, but for the people visiting these businesses. And the 2.17 to 1 land to land ratio is inadequate by any definition.
Yes.
Take a look back at Dovercourt, for example, and look at the amount of parking available for that structure.
The assessment department is only using 48 stalls, and I was curious to know how many stalls there are there. But anyway, I think I have my answer, that some of them are kept for public use, and they don't make any money off them. That's all my questions. That will conclude 3025 Portage, and take us to 233 Kennedy Street.
Okay, and if I might interject on the record, we are seeking, this is a building that is the former Medical Arts Building. It is undergoing significant rehabilitation to convert it to multi-res use, so apartments, in part on the upper floor certainly. And so arising from the unfinished state of that multi-res, and I understand that Mr. Reimer from our office is in communication with the department about this property. And so we are here simply seeking a confirmation of the assessed value under section 5041. They expect occupancy to happen perhaps as early as this summer, projected between this summer and this fall, and so there will be a supplementary assessment issued on it arising from that.
Very good, thank you. We'll have the assessor lead it into the roll, if you will,
Thanks,
please.
Chair. We're at 233 Kennedy Street. This is roll number 12097526800, and the 2020 assessment is $17,889,000.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the panel? There's no questions. Thank you. That we'll take that under advisement. And that completes our agenda. We will call the hearing to a close. Thank you both for coming.
Thank you
very much.